Hi, I'm your host, Jürgen Strauss from InnovaBuzz, and I'm really excited to welcome today to the InnovaBuzz podcast, all the way from Washington, D.C. in the USA, of course, Victoria Rader, who's a possibility coach and the founder of You2Shine. That's YU and the number 2, Shine. Welcome to the InnovaBuzz podcast, Victoria. It's a great privilege to have you as my guest.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here, Jürgen. Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. Now, Elle Ballard introduced us. She was, I can't remember her episode now. I haven't written it down here. So have a look at innovabizz.co/Elle Ballard and you'll find her episode of the podcast. So big hello to Elle. All right. Now, you work a lot on subconscious programming and energy work, and you've written quite a number of books. Your most recent one is called Prosper Me, with a small m and a large E, which I like. I like the way you've branded that, and I know there's a reason behind that. Prosper Me, the 35 universal laws to make money work for you. So I'm really looking forward to digging into some of those ideas in our conversation today. Before we do that, what's the impact you're making in the world today, Victoria?
I think the echo of the impact I'm making is just encouraging everyone to remember and discover the authentic message that they are. You know, people ask me, what does it take to become an author? And I say, wait a minute, to be born. Because if you're born, you're an author. You have an authentic message. You've come to author a very unique, unforgivable, unforgettable, unrepeatable, unduplicatable thing, which is your life. And it just brings me immense joy to be a reminder of that, like relentless reminder that we all get to be authors of our own life, whether we write it or not. Well, that's a writer. That's different from an author.
Yeah, the writer. Yeah, I love that. So there's a bunch of things wrapped up in that. There's the metaphor of writing your own life and being in control of that. There's also the metaphor or the message, I think, of we all have a message. We all have something that we can contribute to the world. And to when you get that question, how do I become an author? Well, just start writing first of all, and it's pretty straightforward. Actually, there's people that will help you publish books. You can self-publish books. You can check how to do that on Google. It's really a choice, isn't it? And the same with the author of your life. You have choices all the way.
Absolutely. And I think, it's very important to know the difference between what we have choices over and the addiction to what we think we have choices over. I think we're currently recovering from addiction that we have a choice over a result, as if we can control the results. I mean, that's a big joke, right? We have control over one thing and one thing only, intent and effort. We control that all day long. Sometimes the best intent and the most grand effort does not bring the result we seek. And then we're in shock. We're like, oh my gosh, how could it possibly happen? It's just a reminder we do not control the result. Now we can be open to receive the best and highest outcome, but we only control the input over and over and over again. And if we celebrate on how we channel and control the input, the life becomes miraculous. If we're still addicted that somehow our input brings the quote-unquote desired results, life becomes a disappointment. And that in itself is, I think, is a choice.
That's a great message. How do we, because I know, and one of the things I say is we can't control our environment, we can in a little bit. We can choose where we live, for example. That's sort of some control over the environment. But we can't control what's going on around us, what other people do, what the weather does, whether the sun comes up in the morning or whether it's behind clouds. We can't control that. We can control our response to it. So I keep reminding people when we have conversations like, isn't the weather awful at the moment because we've got lots of rain? So, well, yes, I don't like it either, but we can control how we respond to that. We can take advantage of the fact that there is a lot of rain to nurture our garden because it's springtime here and so on. How do you keep reminding yourself and others that of that message that we have the power over ourselves and how we react to things and how we recognize and grab opportunities?
I think through daily increase of awareness, I think we fast approaching a time in our life, I think, where, as I said, that desire to somehow control the outcome blinds us to the fact of how we co-created, and that is what questions we ask. So I think the fastest shortcut for me personally, and the one that I then get to teach because I get to live it, is pay attention to what questions you continually ask, because both our subconscious mind, that is delivering the answers through our reticular activating system, right? The system that filters anything and everything outside of the questions we ask, speaking of biology, but also speaking spiritually and speaking through subconscious lining. What we ask is what we receive. You know, whether you take great ancient writings, whether you take the Bible, the Quran, you take Baha'i faith, you take New Age teachings, they all teach one and the same concept: ask and you shall receive. But sometimes we slip our attention to ask for stuff, ask for things, and it shall be delivered. But that's not what it says. You know, I often say Shakespeare was the greatest metaphysical scientist. He said, to be or not to be, that is the question. So every time we ask the question, I pay attention to what questions I ask. If I'm going to ask the question, what else can go wrong? Or why did he, she, they did it? How could they possibly do it? I just can't understand it. I will get an answer to that. But if my life is hard, and I'm human, so there are very many moments during the day when it is hard, I get to ask a different question. How can I make it better? How can it become better? And then the power of my subconscious mind is immediately redirected to give me those answers and those opportunities. So that's in a nutshell the simple mechanism. Pay attention to what question you're asking over and over and over again, both verbally and inside your mind. And to do so, make it safe to hear yourself. Tell yourself, it's okay. I'm not scared. I'm going to love myself through it.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Yeah. So being accepting of everything that we have, even our, as my business coach calls it, our wobbly bits.
Very much so.
Yeah. The one thing you kind of touched on there is our self-talk. And this is something I know you talk quite a bit about in the book, that we certainly sabotage ourselves unknowingly. And some of that is, instead of asking the question, how can I make this better? The self-talk is, oh, this is a terrible situation, and poor me, and I'm feeling sorry for myself, or why is this happening to me? And well, there's a question, but yeah, they're those kind of things, instead of how can I improve this situation, or how can I adapt to this situation and make it better for me. So talk to us a little bit about those self-sabotaging things, and what we might be able to do to A, become aware of them, and B, start to break them down.
I think the best way to kind of look at that are I call them the boundaries of empowerment. And I want to make parallel for it, because just like there's a microcosm of either ourselves biologically or our cellular family relationally, there's a macrocosm, right? There's a relationship that you can observe between countries and so forth. And so I talk about universal laws, and I say what makes it universal is the fact that it's applicable from microcosm to macrocosm. The principle is the same. And so I want to look at the principle and then give as an example the relationship within ourselves, within somebody we love or not so much, dislike, and then look at the countries and see it's the same pattern. And that is the pattern of empowerment, a leg thereof. So just find where you are in any situations, because until you know where you are, you can't know how to go to the next step. And so the first level is the level of powerlessness. And the boundary of powerlessness is that of resistance. We resist what's happening to us. Stuff is happening to us. Like you said, bad weather, it's happening to me. Turns out this whole scenario was to upset me. I mean, I am the center of the known universe, and this is happening to me. I mean, it's just, but that's the conversation of us when we feel powerless, and we've all had those moments. I had, I think, a privilege to grow up in the Soviet Union where everything was happening to you. You had no ability to make any choices. Everything was decided for you. And so things were happening to you. And we see that mentality dying out now, right? With Russia adventuring out in its own very unique way. And so, but as you're looking into that, I'm feeling powerless. Things are happening to me. Pay attention to that language, because that is the beginning of resistance. And resistance wears you out. And when it wears you out, one of the two things happen. Tragically, you might give up on yourself, on your life, and that is the most tragic outcome. Or you develop the ability to overcome it, and you develop the virtue of resilience. And that virtue of resilience is done through simple shift of a question. Wait a minute. Fine, this is happening to me, but which part of it is happening for me? And I call it the power hunger shift. You go from powerless to reclaiming power. There are a lot of speakers that talk about power hunger. That is a drive, and that is a drive for achievement. But the next level is very important, because if you do not go to the next level, so we go from life is happening to me to power hunger. Wait a minute, life is happening for me. How can I turn this for me? What am I learning? Great, necessary. But if it is not stopped, that power hunger becomes never fulfilled. And I see people who make millions in their businesses, who have thriving lives, and they're empty. They're empty inside because they remain hungry. And first, it is hunger for power to get them empowered. But then it becomes endless hunger for more power. So that third shift is the shift of empowerment, where you say, wait a minute. Yes, there are moments I feel life happens to me. There are moments when I know how to turn it for life happening for me. But I have really come into this world to learn how to make life happening through me. And that is the moment of true empowerment. When you look at any situation, neither as a victim, nor as a predator, but as a servant leader, and you say, how can life happen through me? That level of empowerment cannot be taken away by any person, any circumstance, or any event. So finding where you are throughout the day in different areas of your life is very, very beautiful and empowering. So if you're thinking, well, how could they do it to me? You can hug yourself and say, yep, hi, little guy, you're powerless right now. So let's go to, well, fine, they did it to me. What's in it for me?
Yeah.
And then please, please, please do not stuck on for me. Shift over to through me.
Through me. Yeah. That's, I've never heard it explained like that. And there's lots of conversations I've had, where I've noticed those exact situations that you mentioned, where people make that transformation to how can I take this and empower myself, and they then become very successful, and they achieve some big momentous goal, and it's kind of like, okay, tick, and there's this emptiness, right? Yeah, which is exactly what you've described there. Is then and the people that I think do this really well then essentially go on to lead others on that same journey. And that's where I guess that's an example of that step, going to empower through me.
Yeah, very much so. And, and looking at it, as I mentioned, I wanted to talk about and I get to tell people, I get to say it because I'm Ukrainian and I've lost family members and schoolmates, right? So I can talk about what's happening from a place of finding peace that is beyond understanding, peace that is not mine, where for a while if the phone rang, I would have a little PTSD thinking, is that a call about having lost somebody, right? And so when I say it with incredible privilege of having and continuing to live through it. But in terms of subconscious programming, how does it look like in our mind? There are 3 levels of freedom associated with 3 levels of empowerment. You see, in the first level, in the one that, let's say, right now, in this scenario, the mentality of Russian invasion is, I don't have what it takes to be happy, so I'm going to go get it. And all of us would say, I would never do that. But yet, have we done that in our relationship? Are we trying to make another person change because we feel we don't have something and we're going to go get it? We're going to go force somebody else to give us what we think we lack. So that's first level of being, because lack of power is, I have no power within me. I'm going to go get it. And if it requires an attack, I'm going to go attack
somebody else, right? Yeah.
Right. But then let's look at the Ukrainian side, because in energy, in the macrocosm of energy, every predator vibrates with the energy that allows for it. As a Ukrainian, since day one, I have had a subconscious program. I must fight for my freedom. I must fight for my freedom. Guess what? The Ukrainian anthem starts with the line, Ukraine hasn't died yet, because of 500 years of attacks. So now you're looking at the subconscious mind that says, I have what it takes to be happy, and I must fight to protect it. So that's that power hunger. I've got it. I'm going to fight for it. So I go from, I don't have it, I'm going to go get it, to I've got it, I'm going to fight for it. But the solution is understanding that what I have is enough to keep me safe. What I have is abundant to thrive. I think that's what our common consciousness is shifting planetary. I think that is what countries are regurgitating. I think we as individuals are regurgitating it in our life. That shift from going to get something I don't have, to fighting to protect what I have, to understanding, wait a minute, there is plenty. And stepping into that co-creation and ownership through abundance. That's a huge shift we get privileged to witness.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. I think having a conversation around what's happening with that conflict in the Ukraine is a big topic. It's probably going to take a lot longer than we have today. The thought I had there was, in a conflict situation, whether it's something as drastic as that example, or whether it's simply a business negotiation where two sides are entrenched in kind of vastly different positions, if one side takes that approach, that shift that you mentioned, how can they influence the other side to start to see things in that way as well?
I think the free agency kicks in, and we can only bring, the principle of bringing horse to the water remains. You can even give it some salt. You can even give it salt. It still will drink only and only if it wants to. In business, I default to, when you see a client that is not your client, isn't that a freeing point? Walk away. There is a luxury of clients that are your clients. If you are continuous, and there's a concept of the law of healthy friction. I think it's important for people not to be afraid of discussion without forcing an agreement every time, where they can discuss in a healthy friction, find the direction to the best and highest outcome. Because if we always just nod agreement, we suppress a lot of energy that makes us sick. But finding people and partners, and more importantly in business, clients, instead of selling them on your idea, understanding that there is somebody right now, while you're wasting your time following the manual of 25 ways to convince a person buy what they don't need, you are right now wasting the precious time, because there are 10 people who are sitting and hoping for exactly what you have, and they don't know where and how to find it. Once you shift your mindset that your one job as a business owner is to find those you've come to serve, and you seek them out relentlessly, you will find them, you will serve them, you will prosper, and so will they.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And I talk a lot, and we have training programs, in fact, how to get really clear about who your dream client is. And I talk about, I started off with this idea of the ideal client, and I thought, no, you really want the client you actually dream about, the client. And I use this metaphor, who would you take on a desert island with you if you were to spend the rest of your life on a desert island that was dictated to you, and you could take one person who is your dream client? Who would that be? And that's the dream client you should be looking to work with.
Amazing. And it's just shifting the scarcity mindset, because all of us, if you're in business, you already had that person and you know who they are. And the danger is that we can take them for granted, because we are so trained to be rejuvenating
looking
the dead
for new.
fish. And so we have this gorgeous, gorgeous client, and we're like, yeah, I got him or her. Now let me go hunt down those that are running away. No. Focus on your golden client, pour into them, and then earn the right for them to refer you, because their friends are just like them. And the friends of their friends are just like them. So if you pour into the one, you will get 10. Right? And if you pour into the 10, you will get 100. But for most of us, it's a law of gratitude. We tend to depreciate when we should appreciate. When we have something good going, we got to pour so much appreciation into it, because then it grows in value. But common conscious says, oh, I got this one, so let me just ignore them. They're already mine.
Put it on maintenance mode and put the energy somewhere else. Yeah, that is such an important message. And one of the things that I find really frustrating as a consumer, and there's a few companies, or there's a few sectors, business sectors, that do this relentlessly. Energy companies, telecommunication companies, internet service providers, and who else have I had like that? They bring special deals onto the market for new customers, and they publicize them widely often. And when I then contact my provider and say, oh, you've got this special deal, which is actually a lower price than my deal that I've been a customer of yours for 5 years, so I would like this new special deal at the discounted rate. And the response is almost always, I'm sorry, that's only for new customers. And I go, hang on, so you're telling me I'm your loyal customer for 5 years, I've been paying you at this higher rate, and you're not going to discount me now? First of all, I've been overpaying for 5 years, and now you want me to continue overpaying, knowing full well that new customers that are just shopping around, that are going to leave as soon as there's another cheaper offer, they're being treated better.
No, that's just the tendency. And, here's an interesting concept. One of them in the Prospering book you've mentioned, I talk about the law of cause and effect, and, the law of harvest both, that we understand we reap what we sow. But, we're unaware of what we sow so much. Like when I'm talking to some of my clients and they say, well, people want me to discount my services all the time. And I said, okay, let's look at the energy patterns of exchange that you do. How often do you go to a store that's on sale? Well, always. I want to get a deal. Right there is the subconscious program that you are sowing. How about you experience the joy of paying full buck for full value? And so we, in life, we don't get what we want. Jim Rohn said we get who we are. I look at it also energetically. We really get who we are and not necessarily who we think we are. And not who we want to become, and not what we want. So if people are coming after discounts nonstop in your personal business, maybe kind of look at that. And like Johan said, appreciate who you have and how you have, and offer them a discount instead. Yeah.
It's often the problem is in the mirror, right?
Yes.
I had this thought of this idea of the discount. It's they say that be careful what you ask for, right? And if you're going somewhere asking for a discount, you're actually that's the message that's kind of vibrating everywhere.
Yeah, that's what you're sowing. So don't be shocked when you're reaping it. Stay away from the sales rec for 2 months and see your business skyrocket. Isn't that a funny thing? You go, how are they related? Rather directly.
Yeah, excellent. Well, you touched on the Prosper Me book there, and one of the things that I mentioned at the beginning was the spelling of me with a small m and a large e. So I know there's a reason for that. So why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, I've had two different paths to arrive where I am at right now. I was homeschooling my kids and thought it was a great idea to travel the world with them. Found out it cost money. Shocker, shocker. Got my family in debt. Long story short, through practical application of, business success principles, I became top 1% of agents in the U.S. in real estate when the market was crashing. While homeschooling my kids, not working on Sunday, people start asking me, how did you get this magic pill? What's the magic pill? And I've developed all these practical approaches. And then I ran into, wait a minute, there's something bigger that blocks us and sabotages us. And then I went on a whole rampage of getting all the certification, PhD in metaphysical world. Great. And then I settled down and I said, wait a minute. This is a recipe, a part of the world is really focusing on the material things and practical things. And a part of the world is sitting on a pillow meditating without results. So how do I connect the two? And the answer came through the understanding of when I say I am me, or I refer to any one of my clients saying, hey, light me up, that concept of me for each and every one of us. The little m stands for the mortal matter that manifests materially. And that is a part of us. And the big E stands for eternal energy that is the essence that expands. And that is also us. However you define it through your path of spirituality, non-spirituality, religion, non-religion. There's the part of you that breathes you. That's the big E. That's the flow of energy. And so everything we've done since that clarity as soon as we arrived at that clarity, we understood that as a team, all my coaches, all of our products, all my books, a recipe for bringing into oneness and wholeness who I am as a human being, as matter surrendering to energy, mortal surrendering to eternal, and then material to essential, and manifesting to expansive. And that's kind of the philosophy that we put into everything we do as a reminder of who we are. And there's this, in the parts of who we are, you would say there's a scared part of who I am, that little m, because it's scared to die. It's scared to be broke. It's scared it doesn't auto manifest. And there's a sacred part of me who says, wait a minute, you got all the time. Eternity is a long time to clean up your mess, right? And so the language between the two, I think, is finding a way for that sacred part of who you are to find, discover, and love the scared part of who you are, to encourage all of you as a whole, complete you to move forward.
Yeah, I love it. And I love the consistency. You've brought all the same message and the same metaphor or the same acronym right through the different elements there. One of the things you mentioned there, and I'd just like to touch on that. You said eternity's a long time to clean up your mess. I know you're not advocating you can procrastinate on these things, right? You're like me a little bit, that small actions done consistently accumulate and make a big difference. And you have this philosophy of 7 days, 7 months, 7 years kind of written into the book, or one of the blogs that I read about you. So tell us a little bit more about that approach.
Yeah, there is a law of one of the 35 laws, and I chose to do about money because money is very easy to track, but the laws are universal. So one of the laws is the law of Kaizen Way. And the law of Kaizen Way says that teeny tiny steps and increments done consistently lead to huge results. And so, it's fascinating to think that people talk about quantum leap. There's a lot of conversation of quantum leap. And I think for a lot of people, there's a misunderstanding that quantum leap is I do nothing and then I do everything. And it's a massive action that happened overnight. I went to bed, I'm sorry for the word, but self-identifying as illusion. I woke up self-identifying on top of the mountain as a success story. And social media tries to sell that. But the quantum leap originates from the quantum jump on the quantum level, which is subatomic level. So you have this little electron that keeps going around the nucleus, goes around. Notice how it goes around. It doesn't sit and hope to go. It doesn't procrastinate, like you said. It keeps going around in circles. Feels like it's going in circles. over and over and over again. And then there is a photon of light. Light is presented into that system. And because the electron is moving, that surge of light brings it up to the new level. And that jump is called a quantum leap. So in our life, when we get our head down and we do those little steady steps over and over and over and over and over again, as we keep going, we keep moving, like I said, fall down, get up, clean up, move up, then all of a sudden an idea, a bright, brilliant, we describe them as light concepts, a bright, brilliant idea. You listen to Johan's podcast, one of his guests, or Johan says something, that photon of light enters your consistent movement and you jump to the next level. And so that is the law of Kaizen Way explaining the quantum leap that I think is so deeply misunderstood and misused right now. Do your little steady small steps every day. And once the brilliant idea comes in, you're already moving and you can move closer to it.
And that fits so well with that concept of the small m and the large E for the energy, right? The energy coming in makes the transformation.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. Well, this is wonderful. Victoria, I could go on chatting with you for ages, but I'm just cognizant of the time. And I think it's a good point now on that positive note and message to move on to the Buzz, our innovation round. It's the same 5 questions that I ask of every guest. And the idea is that you'll share some more ideas to inspire our listener to go and do something awesome today. You ready?
I'm ready.
What's the number one thing anyone needs to do to be more innovative?
Implement the inspiration that you receive. Innovation is inspiration plus implementation. So you get an idea, find a way to implement it. If it's not good, you haven't wasted your time wondering. Go to the next idea. Yep. And you learn something. But yes, implementation is so important, isn't it? Otherwise, it's just, it doesn't exist really. Daydreaming. It's good. I mean, when you're on the beach.
All right. What's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas?
Gave birth to 2 kids. By far the best. I had to find an idea to handle 2 genius babies. And okay, if you're not in a child birthing process, I'll be more serious. Give birth to an idea. Give birth to something, and don't be attached to it like you would be to a child. Go mess up if you have to. So just do something.
Yeah, I love it. And you reminded me, I've got 2 adult children and going through the young stages, they were very bright as well. And resourceful is a word I love to use. And that's certainly tested our resourcefulness with those big changes. And I'm sure it was the same with you.
Yep.
All right. Do you have a favorite resource you use most often?
Yes. In my case, I study actually any and all spiritual texts, and I ponder on them. And I do rely on what I believe is to be the one source of inspiration. However you define that source, I refer to it as God, the great overall designer. And so I do receive all of my creative ideas first as an inspiration, as that idea that is born through meditative practices. And then I find that as a backing in spiritual writings that I read. So for me, that is a non-negotiable. I nourish the spirit first. And in terms of the practical thing, as I've mentioned, you probably comes through as repetition, but to me, it's so important. I then will test it out. I will ask, great idea. What is the one small step I can take today to support or test this idea? It's a powerful question. What is one small step I can take today to support or test this idea?
Yeah, I love that question. That's really brilliant. And asking it, and again, this idea of consistency, asking it, if you have this idea, asking that question for every idea that comes up, whether it's from that spiritual practice of reading and meditation, or whether it's like
anyway.
I often get ideas from bike riding or something. And yeah, it's asking that question. Very powerful. All right. Now, what's the best way to keep a client on track?
What a great question. The best way to keep a client on track is to stay on track and make them so excited about the secret you have that they have no choice but a passionate desire to follow you, find you, and find your secret. Never, ever, ever try to give something to your client that you're not living. They know it. And if you have a client who is lacking motivation, that is a big mirror. You look in that mirror and say, what triggers me about my client? And you go relentlessly into working on that virtue or lesson that's right there.
Yeah. So work on yourself first.
Yeah, make it exciting. Make him want to follow you. You should never be pushing a client. If you're pushing a client, you're behind.
Yeah. I love it. And I think I've certainly experienced this, and I'm pretty sure we've all experienced this, where we've done something, we've succeeded at something, we've had a big breakthrough in learning something that we're really passionate about, we're excited about it, we talk about it to others. People then come to us and say, how did you do that? That's amazing. Will you teach me how to do that? And there is exactly what you're saying. So you're living something, you're acting as that inspiration to others, so that third level, and that's the opportunity to actually be of service rather than saying, well, I do this, and so I'm going to try to get you to do this as well. This is the way we do it.
Yeah. And trusting that the way to do it is within them and helping them discover it. Because, very often I think we can become, the word addicted is too strong. We can be set in our way to such a degree that we resist a birth of new idea because it is coming through a client. Not some of them. I will start saying some of them, and I paused. All of my great ideas have come through work with my incredible clients. All of them, directly or indirectly. So.
Yeah. Excellent. So be really open to the ideas coming in. Excellent. All right. And finally, in the buzz round, what's the number one thing anyone can do to differentiate themselves?
Be you. Know who you are. Know who you are fully and completely. Take a chill pill and write down 4 questions. After you take the chill pill, you write down 4 questions. Question 1, what do I want? You write everything that comes to you and through you, all of it, good, bad, ugly. What do I want? Question number 2, what do I want the most? Don't skip. Write down the answers to that. Then the important question, number 3, what outcome do I want? Write down the outcomes. The 4th question, what outcome do I want the most? And once you have that one-word answer, the one outcome you want the most, then you're going to ask the action question, what is the one thing I do today to relentlessly pursue, create, and receive this outcome in my life? You do that every day, you're going to become more and more of who you are. And being who you are differentiates you from everybody else in a natural, authentic, contagious, and expansive way. 4 thought question, 1 action question, and then implement. And then I'll be looking you up and hiring you to do something.
Excellent. Well, that's you've not just given us an answer to the question there, but the bonus, how we go about achieving it. So thanks for that. That's brilliant.
Thank you.
All right. Victoria, this has really been wonderful. Now, where can people find out more about you, about the work you do, and also get a hold of your books, maybe even get in touch and say thanks for what you've shared today?
Yeah, if you are on Instagram, my handle is at Vika, _Rader, Rader. But the place where we want to welcome everybody is through a free quiz. It's called moneyquiz.me. And now you know the secret. You know why it's .me, not .com. It's .me. Moneyquiz.me. It's a funky way to discover your driving passion and emotion that can either expand you and allow you to prosper in all areas of your life or block you if it's not processed correctly. So you take the quiz, you find 3 universal laws to help you on your journey of prosperity, and you become a part of our expanding family.
Excellent. Thanks, Victoria. And we'll post those links in the show notes, of course, and people can click straight through. So, I mean, you've kind of described how we can differentiate ourselves and giving us a really clear path through those 5 questions. What's an action you'd like our listener to take away out of today's conversation?
What's coming through very, very loudly for me is a very important mindset shift for manifestation. I think because it is somewhat misunderstood, and because I work with subconscious mind, I want to give an amazing, amazing action step. Think of whatever it is that you want in your life the most, what outcome you want the most. And before you go to bed, visualize at that time as you drift to sleep, the feeling of already having it, like really. The reason before you go to sleep is because as you fall asleep, your subconscious mind regurgitates the last thought for up to 4 hours, creating actual neural pathways of recognition for things to support that. So let's say you want a kind partner. What would a kind partner look like? Maybe somebody who rubs your feet when you come home at the end of the day. So fall asleep with that tender image in your mind. And then when you wake up, you're going to take action and say, now, since I want that kind of kindness in my life, I want to live that kind of kindness. So you're going to ask yourself, what is the kindest way I can approach my day? That is the mechanism of creation that is very practical, and anything in your life, anything can be brought to you and through you through this living the principle of attraction.
Yeah, and that's great. And the scientific principle, of course, there is that the unconscious mind doesn't distinguish between reality and fiction or dreams. And the more vivid you can make that, the more real the unconscious mind thinks it is. It builds those neural pathways that you mentioned. And so when opportunities come that fit that pattern, you'll immediately see them like that.
Yeah, very much so. So 3 years from now, we'll be doing this interview from my office in Hawaii, where I am right there, right now.
Excellent. And I'll be there with you. I'll be in the same room. And
I love that.
Go for a walk on the beach afterwards.
Love that.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for sharing your time and your insight so generously today. I do need to ask one more question, and that's, who else should I get on the show and why?
Ooh, I think the person that I'd love to think of right away is my incredible client, Stacy Shiflett, who is launched and is building up her modern consciousness business. I think she's a deep thinker and an incredibly successful human being who went from the business with llamas to construction to shifting the modern consciousness. So yes, definitely Stacy Shiflett.
That sounds like a really interesting journey. So, yeah, we'll get an introduction to Stacy and see if we can start that conversation. So looking forward to that as well. So thanks again, Victoria. I've really enjoyed our conversation today. Learned a lot. There's been a lot of great action steps and a lot of great deep explanations that I'm sure our listener will really enjoy. So thanks again, and all the best for the future, and please do stay in touch.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.